Hi everyone, we're back with the Advent Challenge and today I'm going to do a poinsettia, so we're on day 11. I'm going to reuse the colours from my palette and I'm starting with this cadmium red on round number 6, pretty much fully loaded with water, and then dipping straight into the red, and we're going to start by getting a centre area. So I want this to be fairly loaded with paint because that gives me more time. So I have got, just checking it's clean, my round number 10, and I'm going to start to paint and pull out. So this is with water. Now this paper is a cotton paper and it takes a lot of water, so I'm having to re-dip back in. It's got a really lovely paper. You can see how the paint, because it's still wet, is flowing through. So you're creating like a leaf shape, and I want some of them to be a bit smaller and some of them to be a bit bigger. Then with my round number 6, I'm going to flow this way. So I'm going to dot into the centre. I'm leaving little gaps. So some of it will blend forwards into the centre, some of it won't. And then I'm going to pick up a tiny bit of the yellow, cadmium yellow, start to drop that into the wet paint so that I'm creating a really nice blended and shaded effect. This is loose watercolour painting at its best. Now I've missed a bit of water there. You can tell from where the blend is happening. So I'm just going to make sure that I've got those leaves nicely covered. And then I'm going to pull out with my round number 6 and a wet brush again, just a centre line. I'm going to dry this off and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so that's nicely dry, and it's really important we dry that off so that you end up with the shape of those petals before we then come on to the ones underneath. So with my round number 10, I'm going to come in, create the shape of the petal underneath. Again, some of them are going to want to be bigger, some of them are going to be smaller. Just want a nice shape. So we're coming on to dry now. And then what I'm going to do is just dip a little bit into the green, because green's your shadow colour, and just bring that along those edges. Take a little bit on that edge as well. And then we're going to repeat the process. I'm actually going to use my round number 6 rather than my round number 10 because that's a little bit too big for this. So I just want you to make sure every time you're doing this that your brush is loaded with water when you're dipping in. If it's loaded with water, then you're not going to get a dry line. You've just got to move with the loaded paint fairly quickly. What you'll find is as it dries, those little lines from underneath that we've already created will appear. Again, I'm going to dip into the green. The green mix is Viridian and burnt sienna. So it's ones that I've used on the previous challenge. We're just keeping it to those edges where it would naturally be shadowed. Again, loading my brush with water, coming in. Painting that area. Dab of green. Load my brush up with water. Flowers are quite therapeutic really, because you do the same action over and over again and you hopefully get better at it every time. And then a dab of the green. It's already looking really beautiful. So I'm going to dry this one off. Okay, so that's nicely dry. So we've got two lots of petal edges now. And what we're going to do for the final ones is to take the green in. So we are going to do these in between each one, and it's going to help to pull out those lighter petals as well. So I'm taking in the green this time, and then a complementary colour to green is the red. So to create the shadow, we're going to drop in the red. Make sure my brush is nicely loaded, and then I want these bits to stand out, so I'm going to make sure that the leaves come on the edge of this petal, so this one helps to stand out. Dip into the red, the cadmium red. I'm just going to drop a little bit of that in. I'm going to drop a bit more of this one in. It needs to be a bit stronger on there. You still get that sort of red tinge on the leaves, so I want that to flow through. So this one I'm going to do a slightly different shape. And just drop in a little bit of the red. Those edges again. I'm just going to come back to these ones because this is drying quicker because I've taken that in. I'm just going to take a damp brush over that petal again. So this is what I would classically call a watermark, which I don't want to happen, and that red is overpowered that, so I'm just going to take a damp brush and take a little bit back. Just showing you how to manipulate something when it goes wrong. You know, things do go wrong, it's just knowing how to fix them. Okay, so here I'm going to have a smaller one, but I'm going to hit the edge of that petal so that I can see it much better. The green's going to help it stand out. Dab of the red. Load up, go back into the green. Going to do one this side as well at the same time. You can do one at a time, or you can speed up a little bit, as long as you can get to the point where you are popping that paint in whilst it's still wet, you're fine. I'm just going to stop that running any further. On some of these you don't want too much shadow, especially if they're higher up, because you'll capture more light up there anyway. So I'm just coming around the edge of that petal. You can see it's standing out lovely. Such a simple thing to do. Just making this one a little bit bigger so it's got a nicer balance. Take a little bit of the red in for shadow. Okay, so I'm going to dry that one off. Okay, so that's dry, and I'm going to come in now and just create a little bit more detail. So this is the cadmium red. I'm just going to come down the centre of each one. Now I've started with the darker ones first because I want less on the brush when I'm coming into the lighter ones, and then I'm going to wet one side of the petal, and that's going to help to soften that in. You can do one at a time if you think it will dry too quickly and you can't get round. I'm quite speedy at this. If it does start to dry, you just need to agitate the edge of the surface and it will start to move again. That's just giving them an extra bit of detail. I'm going to take a little bit of the cadmium yellow, a bit more into the centre, just so that blends. It can blend out into the red as well. I want it to blend. Helps everything blend together. And then I'm going to do the same with the green. So you just got to follow the line, that centre line. And then just wet each side. It's a really, really subtle effect. It works really well. If any look too dark, if you think, oh, that's a bit too potent for what you've got, then just with a damp, nearly dry brush, just come along and take a little bit out. You'll have time, if you've got a cotton paper, just to lift a little bit. That one was a bit strong. I think as everything else dries, it'll look lovely. So that's today's finished. I hope you're enjoying it, and I shall see you tomorrow. Just in addition, I've added a tiny bit of gold sparkle. So I've used this Aquabond's the Sminky Rich Gold, and I have literally just dipped a wet brush into it and then dabbed it on, and it's given a really nice gold sparkle.